34 years ago, Sarah Chen disappeared from her own home on a sunny October afternoon, leaving no trace. The disappearance plunged her family into a tragedy that would last decades and left an entire community in shock and confusion. Police considered several possibilities but couldn't solve the case, causing outrage in the Chen family, who never lost hope, fighting tirelessly for the truth to come to light. Before we continue, subscribe, like the video, and hit the bell. This helps the channel bring more stories like this one. It was October 15, 1991, an ordinary Tuesday in the Lakewood, Colorado suburb. David and Linda Chen left for work at 7:30 a.m., as they had done every day for 15 years. Sarah, 14, stayed home, a routine established since she turned 13, and demonstrated sufficient maturity to stay alone for a few hours. Sarah was born with mild cerebral palsy that primarily affected her legs, but this never prevented her from being a determined and independent teenager. She used a wheelchair for longer distances, but could walk short stretches with the help of crutches. She was a brilliant student, passionate about literature, and dreamed of becoming a writer. That morning, Linda kissed her daughter's forehead and said, "I'll be back at 3:30, honey. There's a sandwich in the fridge for lunch." Sarah waved from bed, where she was reading an Edgar Allan Poe book, a recent passion that slightly worried her parents due to the dark atmosphere of the stories. The Chen family routine was meticulously organized. David worked as a civil engineer at a local construction company, while Linda was a part-time nurse at the regional hospital. They always made sure Sarah had everything she needed before leaving: medications, food, entertainment, and the phone within reach. At 11:15 that morning, Sarah called her best friend Jessica Martinez, complaining about being bored. "My parents treat me like I'm made of glass," she said, according to what Jessica would later tell police. "Sometimes I wish I could go out and do normal things like any teenager." It was the last time anyone spoke to Sarah Chen. When Linda arrived home at 3:45 p.m., she found the front door unlocked. Something unusual, since they always insisted Sarah keep the house secure. She called her daughter's name several times but got no response. Sarah's wheelchair was in the garage, her crutches leaning beside the bed. Her medications remained untouched on the bedroom dresser. What disturbed Linda most was finding Poe's book open to the page where Sarah had been reading, with an improvised bookmark made from paper that read, "Not everything that disappears is truly lost." Police were called at 4:20 p.m. Officer Robert Hayes, a veteran with 20 years of experience, conducted the initial investigation. "Cases involving minors with disabilities require immediate attention," he explained to the Chens. "We're not waiting 24 hours to start searching." The initial search was intense but confusing. There were no signs of struggle, forced windows or doors, and no neighbor reported suspicious activity. The Chen's backyard was searched, as well as the basement and all rooms in the house. Tracking dogs were brought in, but lost Sarah's scent at the garage entrance. "It's as if she simply vanished into thin air," said Detective Marcus Thompson, who took over the case on the second day. "In 15 years of career, I've never seen anything like this." The first days after Sarah's disappearance were marked by an unprecedented community mobilization in Lakewood. The neighborhood where the Chens had lived for 8 years transformed into an improvised operations center, with volunteers organizing searches and distributing flyers. Jessica Martinez, Sarah's best friend, provided police with crucial details about the teenager's emotional state in the weeks before the disappearance. Sarah was different, Jessica told detectives. She talked a lot about independence, about how she wanted to prove she could do things alone. She said she was tired of being seen only as the girl in the wheelchair. Detective Thompson meticulously documented Jessica's statements. Sarah had mentioned several times her desire to do something brave and show everyone she was stronger than they thought. These statements raised the possibility that Sarah might have left home voluntarily, perhaps to prove her independence. The scene investigation revealed intriguing details. Sarah's room was organized unusually, books stacked in a specific way, clothes folded with military precision, and an unfinished letter on her desk. The letter, addressed to a special person, said, "Thank you for understanding me when no one else does. You made me feel normal for the first time in my life." Linda Chen was disturbed by the discovery. "Sarah never mentioned any special friend," she told Detective Thompson. "She told me everything. We thought Jessica was her only close friend. Police expanded the investigation to include teachers, therapists, and family acquaintances. Sarah attended physical therapy twice a week at the Colorado Rehabilitation Center, where she was treated by Dr. Michael Rodriguez. Sarah was an exemplary patient, the doctor reported. Determined, optimistic, always focused on improving her mobility. In recent sessions, she seemed particularly excited about something, but wouldn't tell me what it was. Analysis of Sarah's belongings revealed another puzzling element: several pages torn from her personal diary. The diary covered the last 6 months, but entries from September and early October had been carefully removed. "Someone didn't want us to read something specific," observed Detective Thompson. The physical search expanded to a 5-kilometer radius around the Chen house. Parks, vacant lots, abandoned buildings, all were searched by volunteer teams coordinated by police. The Lakewood Fire Department provided specialized equipment for searching confined spaces and hard-to-reach areas. During the second week of investigation, a discovery brought new hope. Wheelchair tracks were found in a park 3 kilometers from the Chen house. The marks appeared recent and followed a specific trail to an isolated area near a small lake. However, the tracks simply disappeared at the water's edge. "This may indicate Sarah arrived here on her own," Officer Hayes told the Chens. "The marks are consistent with her wheelchair, and the direction suggests she knew exactly where she was going." The Chen family oscillated between hope and despair. David, normally controlled and rational, began showing signs of extreme stress. "She couldn't have come here alone," he insisted. "It's 3 kilometers from our house. Sarah never went out that far without telling us." Linda, on the other hand, clung to the possibility that her daughter was trying to prove her independence. "Maybe she went to meet someone," she told her husband. "Someone who made her feel special, like in the letter." Divers were brought in to search the lake, but found nothing except trash and old debris. The track trail remained as the only concrete clue, but raised more questions than it provided answers. 3 months after Sarah Chen's disappearance, the investigation began losing momentum. The Lakewood Police Department had dedicated significant resources to the case, but clues were scarce, and pressure for results in other crimes was growing. Detective Thompson held weekly meetings with the Chen family, but his updates became progressively more discouraging. "We've followed all available leads," he explained to David and Linda. "We've expanded the search to neighboring states, checked hospital and shelter records, but Sarah simply disappeared." Forensic analysis of the unfinished letter found in Sarah's room revealed no fingerprints other than her own. The handwriting was definitely Sarah's, but handwriting experts hired by the Chens detected signs of emotional tension in the words, firmer strokes than normal irregular pen pressure. During this period, Linda Chen developed an obsessive personal search routine. Every morning after David left for work, she would drive around the city visiting places where Sarah might be: libraries, community centers, medical clinics. "I felt that if I stopped searching, it would be like giving up on her," she would relate years later. The most frustrating aspect of the investigation was the complete absence of confirmed sightings. Despite flyers distributed in 3 states and local media coverage, no one reported seeing Sarah after October 15th. "In disappearance cases, we usually have at least some false sightings," observed Detective Thompson. The complete lack of reports was, in itself, suspicious. Police explored several theories during those first months. The first hypothesis considered that Sarah had run away voluntarily to prove her independence, but ended up in a dangerous situation. The second theory suggested kidnapping by someone known, someone Sarah trusted enough to accompany voluntarily. A third, darker possibility emerged when the FBI became involved in the case in January 1992. Agents specializing in crimes against people with disabilities raised the hypothesis that Sarah could have been targeted by a predator who specifically sought vulnerable victims. "People with disabilities are statistically more prone to being crime victims," Special Agent Patricia Wilkins explained to the Chens. "Predators often see disabilities as an opportunity, assuming the victim will be less able to resist or identify them later." This revelation devastated Linda Chen. "I always tried to teach Sarah to be confident and independent," she said through tears. "I never thought this could put her in danger." During spring 1992, active investigation was officially reduced. The case remained open, but only one detective was assigned to follow occasional leads. David Chen reacted with controlled fury. "They're giving up on my daughter because she had a disability. If she were a normal teenager, the search would continue. The Chen family made the decision to hire a private investigator, William Foster, specialized in missing persons cases. Foster, a former Denver police detective, accepted the case for a reduced fee after learning about the family's situation. Cases involving minors with disabilities require a different approach, Foster explained to the Chens. I'm going to revisit every detail from the beginning, looking for something that might have been overlooked. Foster began re-interviewing everyone who had contact with Sarah in the weeks before the disappearance. His meticulous approach revealed small inconsistencies in some testimonies, but nothing substantial enough to generate new leads. The first year without Sarah was devastating for the Chen family. Linda developed chronic insomnia and depression, while David became increasingly isolated, focusing obsessively on work as an escape mechanism. Our house became a mausoleum, Linda described. We kept Sarah's room exactly as she left it, hoping she would return at any moment. Between 1992 and 2000, the Sarah Chen case entered a state of painful suspension. Official investigations practically ceased, with only occasional checks when false leads emerged. The Chen family learned to live with an absence that defined every aspect of their lives. Private investigator William Foster worked on the case for 2 years before admitting defeat. I reviewed every piece of evidence, re-interviewed all witnesses, explored theories the police didn't consider, he reported to the Chens in 1994. It's as if Sarah had been erased from existence. I've never encountered a case so devoid of clues. During these years, Linda Chen became an activist for families of missing persons, especially those with disabilities. She founded the Lakewood Families Support Group, which met monthly to share experiences and pressure for improvements in police investigations. Society treats people with disabilities as if they were less important, Linda said in a local newspaper interview in 1995. When Sarah disappeared, I felt some officers assumed she couldn't survive alone, so they stopped looking for a living person. David Chen dealt with the loss differently. He immersed himself in work, eventually opening his own engineering company. Working was the only thing that kept me from going crazy, he admitted years later. Every project was a distraction from the unanswered questions about Sarah. The couple almost divorced in 1996. The different ways of dealing with grief created an emotional distance that seemed insurmountable. Linda lived in the past, always talking about Sarah, always searching, David remembered. I needed to find a way to move forward, even without answers. Couples therapy helped them rediscover a connection based on shared memory of Sarah, rather than on the pain of loss. We learned that our daughter wasn't just a tragedy, Linda explained. She was 14 years of joy, determination, and love. We decided to honor that memory. In 1998, on the 7th anniversary of the disappearance, the Chens organized the first Walk for Sarah's Memory, an annual event that attracted hundreds of community participants. The event raised funds to improve police resources for missing persons investigations. During this period, sighting reports occasionally emerged, but all proved false. A woman in Utah swore she saw Sarah in a wheelchair at a shopping center in 1997. Investigations revealed it was a local young woman with similar physical characteristics. The most painful of these false sightings occurred in 1999, when a family in Nevada reported having sheltered a disabled young woman who said her name was Sarah. David and Linda Chen drove 12 hours to Nevada, only to discover it was a teenage runaway with a history of mental problems. These false alarms were devastating, Linda remembered. Each time our hope would resurge only to be brutally crushed. Lakewood police underwent significant changes during these years. Detective Thompson retired in 1997, and the Sarah Chen case was transferred to inactive files. New officers arrived without personal knowledge of the case, treating it as just another file in a pile of unsolved cases. In 2000, almost a decade after the disappearance, David and Linda Chen made a difficult decision to begin considering Sarah legally dead. It wasn't about giving up, David explained to the family lawyer. It was about accepting that we might never have the answers we sought. The legal process was emotionally devastating. Linda refused to sign the initial documents, insisting that declaring Sarah dead would be a betrayal of her memory. It took 2 years of therapy and gentle persuasion from David for her to agree to the process. During this period, the Chen house remained practically unchanged. Sarah's room was preserved as a shrine, with her books, clothes, and personal objects exactly where she had left them. Visitors always commented on how the house seemed frozen in time, David remembered. In March 2006, 15 years after Sarah Chen's disappearance, an accidental discovery would completely change the course of the investigation. What began as a simple home renovation transformed into the key to solving one of Lakewood's most disturbing mysteries. David Chen, now 58, had finally decided to make modifications to the house to improve accessibility, an emotional decision motivated by Sarah's memory. "I wanted the house to be ready in case she came back," he explained to his wife. "I wanted it to be perfect for her." The contracted construction company, Morrison Home Improvements, specialized in accessibility adaptations. The owner, James Morrison, had previously worked with families who had disabled members and understood the emotional sensitivity involved. During the initial basement inspection for residential elevator installation, workers discovered structural inconsistencies in the walls. "This wall here isn't in the house's original plans," observed structural engineer Carlos Mendez, pointing to a basement section that appeared to have been added later. The initial discovery didn't immediately alarm the Chen family. Old houses frequently underwent modifications over the years, and they assumed previous owners had made undocumented alterations. However, when workers began removing the wall for elevator installation, they found something unexpected: an empty space of approximately 2 by 3 meters, completely sealed and hidden behind the false wall. "I've never seen anything like this in 20 years of construction," Morrison told the Chens. "It's as if someone had deliberately built a secret compartment." Linda Chen was at work when the discovery was made. David called her with a trembling voice. "Linda, you need to come home, now. They found something." When Linda arrived, she found David standing in front of the hole in the wall, pale and in shock. Inside the secret compartment, illuminated by workers' flashlights, were objects she immediately recognized: Sarah's pink school backpack, her favorite clothes carefully folded, and her Edgar Allan Poe books. "My first thought was that Sarah had created a secret hideout," Linda remembered. "Maybe it was her special place where she kept important things, but then I realized Sarah could never have built that wall alone." Police were called immediately. The current detective responsible for archived cases, Marcus Rivera, arrived at the Chen house at 2:30 p.m. "In 12 years of career, I had never seen a scene like this," he reported later. The secret compartment contained more than just Sarah's belongings. There was also a small mattress, blankets, and several containers with water and canned food, all with expiration dates from 1991. At the back of the space, the forensic team found something that changed everything: a diary that didn't belong to Sarah. The first pages of the diary revealed an adult's handwriting, documenting disturbing obsessions about Sarah and detailed plans to protect her from the cruel world. The entries dated from September 1991, just 1 month before the disappearance. "It's evident that someone prepared this space specifically for Sarah," Detective Rivera told the Chens. "Someone who had access to your house and detailed knowledge of her routine." Initial forensic analysis of the compartment revealed fabric fibers that matched the clothes Sarah was wearing on the day she disappeared. More disturbingly, traces of medications Sarah took for her neurological condition were found. Linda Chen had an emotional breakdown upon realizing the implications of the discovery. "Someone planned this. Someone prepared a place to keep our daughter prisoner in our own house," she said through tears to Detective Rivera. "If this case has already caught your attention, leave a like. This helps the channel bring more stories like this and Sarah Chen's story to reach more people." The discovery of the secret compartment transformed the Sarah Chen case from a mysterious disappearance into an active criminal investigation. For the first time in 15 years, police had substantial physical evidence and a clear direction for the investigation. The discovery of the secret compartment triggered the official reopening of the Sarah Chen case. The Lakewood Police Department assigned a complete investigative team, including forensic specialists and criminal psychologists from the FBI. Detailed analysis of the diary found in the hideout revealed a deeply disturbed mind. The entries, written over 2 months before Sarah's disappearance, documented a growing obsession with protecting the teenager from a world that didn't understand her. "Sarah is special. She deserves to be properly cared for. Her parents don't understand her true needs," said a September 1991 entry. I can give her the love and protection she really deserves, away from all the cruel stares and society's judgments. The FBI brought in Special Agent Dr. Catherine Walsh, a psychological profiling specialist, to analyze the case. This isn't a typical kidnapping, she explained to the Chens. The perpetrator shows clear signs of delusional disorder with romantic fixation. He genuinely believes he was saving Sarah. Analysis of physical evidence from the compartment revealed even more disturbing details. The space had been carefully prepared for long-term habitation, improvised ventilation, acoustic insulation, and even a small television with VHS tapes of cartoons Sarah used to watch. Whoever did this knew Sarah intimately, observed Detective Rivera. Knew about her medical condition, her personal preferences, her schedules. It wasn't a stranger. The investigation focused on people who had regular access to the Chen house. The list included service providers, therapists, family members, and close friends. Each person was thoroughly investigated, with special attention to those who had shown excessive interest in Sarah. During reanalysis of the original investigation files, detectives discovered something that had been overlooked in 1991, inconsistencies in the statements of Michael Torres, a medical equipment technician who visited the Chen house monthly for Sarah's wheelchair maintenance. Torres, 34 years old in 1991, worked for Access Med Equipment, a company that provided and maintained accessibility equipment. He had been interviewed during the original investigation, but only superficially, since his presence in the house was considered routine and professional. Torres knew the Chen family routine in detail, said Agent Walsh. He knew when the parents worked, when Sarah was alone, and had legitimate access to the house. More importantly, he had sufficient technical knowledge to build that secret compartment. Torres's re-interview revealed suspicious behaviors that had gone unnoticed in the original investigation. Neighbors reported seeing him in the Chen house area at unusual times, claiming urgent equipment problems that required immediate attention. Linda Chen remembered disturbing details when reviewing her memory of Torres. He always asked personal questions about Sarah, she told investigators. He asked about her hobbies, her plans for the future, if she had a boyfriend. At the time, I thought it was just professional interest in her well-being. Handwriting analysis of the diary found in the compartment confirmed that the entries were written by Torres. Handwriting experts compared the writing with work documents he had filled out at the time, finding unmistakable matches. More evidence emerged when police obtained search warrants for Torres's current residence in Denver, where he had moved in 1993. In the house, they found a disturbing collection of secretly taken photographs of Sarah, newspaper articles about her disappearance, and even clothing items that had disappeared from the Chen house. Torres had created a shrine dedicated to Sarah, reported Detective Rivera. He had kept his obsession alive for 15 years, collecting any information about her and her family. The most shocking discovery came when investigators analyzed Torres's work records. In the 2 years following Sarah's disappearance, he had requested frequent transfers, eventually leaving Colorado in 1994. His pattern of moves coincided with investigations in other states involving disappearances of young people with disabilities. We began to realize Sarah may not have been his only victim, Agent Walsh told the Chens. Torres may have used his professional position to identify and attack other vulnerable people. The investigation expanded nationally, with the FBI coordinating with police departments in several states to verify unsolved cases that might be connected to Torres. The pattern was consistent: young people with disabilities who disappeared after contact with medical equipment services. In April 2006, after weeks of intensive investigation, Michael Torres was arrested at his Denver residence on charges of aggravated kidnapping in the Sarah Chen case. The arrest occurred without resistance. Torres seemed almost relieved to be confronted with the accumulated evidence against him. During initial interrogation, Torres remained silent, requesting a lawyer. However, after 3 days of legal consultations, he surprised everyone by requesting a meeting with Sarah's parents. He said he wanted to explain everything to the Chens, reported his public defender Robert Martinez. Against my legal advice, he insisted they deserved to know the truth about their daughter. The meeting was scheduled to take place at the county jail, with detectives, FBI, and forensic psychologists present. David and Linda Chen debated intensely whether they should participate. It was our chance to finally get answers, Linda said. But it also meant confronting the man who destroyed our family. On April 18, 2006, 15 years and 6 months after Sarah's disappearance, her parents sat face-to-face with Michael Torres for the first time since he had provided maintenance services at their house. Torres, now 49, appeared visibly aged and emotionally fragmented. His first words were a whispered apology. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to protect Sarah." The confession that followed revealed a version of events no one had anticipated. Torres admitted to building the secret compartment in the Chen basement during his maintenance visits over several months in 1991. "I saw how people looked at Sarah on the street," Torres said during the recorded confession. "The pitying stares, the whispers. She deserved something better. She deserved to be treated like the special person she was." Torres reported that he had fallen obsessively in love with Sarah, interpreting her politeness and independence as signs that she shared his feelings. "She always smiled at me when I came to fix her wheelchair," he said. "We talked about books. She understood me." On the morning of October 15, 1991, Torres had returned to the Chen house using a key he had copied during one of his visits. He found Sarah reading in her room and convinced her to come with him, claiming there was an urgent problem with her wheelchair in the garage. "She trusted me," Torres said, beginning to cry during the confession. "When I brought her to the basement and showed her the space I had prepared, she was confused at first. I tried to explain it was to protect her, that we could be together away from all the judgments." The most devastating revelation came when Torres admitted that Sarah had tried to resist and escape. During the struggle, she had hit her head against the concrete wall of the secret compartment, suffering injuries Torres didn't know how to treat. "She became unconscious," Torres said through sobs. "I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I tried to take care of her, but she never woke up." Linda Chen left the room during this part of the confession, unable to continue listening. David remained, determined to hear all the details about his daughter's final moments. Torres admitted that Sarah had died in his hands on the second day of captivity. Terrified of the consequences of his actions, he had sealed the secret compartment with Sarah's body inside, building a false wall that remained untouched for 15 years. "I visited the site regularly," Torres confessed. "I talked to her, apologized. I promised that one day I would tell the truth." The confession also revealed that Torres had planned to turn himself in several times over the years, but always backed down due to fear and denial. His move to Denver in 1994 was an attempt to escape the memories, but guilt had haunted him constantly. "Every news story about the case, every anniversary of the disappearance was torture," he said. "I knew the Chens were suffering, but I couldn't find the courage to confess." Torres's confession provided the closure the Chen family had sought for 15 years, but also brought renewed pain by confirming that Sarah had died shortly after her disappearance, while they maintained hope that she was alive somewhere. Michael Torres's confession triggered a massive forensic operation to recover Sarah Chen's remains from the secret compartment where they had remained hidden for 15 years. The excavation task was conducted by specialists from the Colorado Institute of Forensic Anthropology, with the Chen family anxiously awaiting confirmation. On April 25, 2006, Sarah's remains were officially identified through dental records and DNA analysis. The confirmation brought a mixture of relief and renewed pain for David and Linda Chen. They finally had answers, but also definitive confirmation that their daughter had been dead for 15 years. "For all these years, we maintained a small hope that Sarah was alive somewhere," Linda said in a later interview. "Knowing the truth was simultaneously liberating and devastating." Forensic analysis revealed additional details about Sarah's final moments. The medical examiner confirmed she had suffered severe cranial trauma, consistent with Torres's version of the accident during her escape attempt. Death had been instantaneous after the initial injury. Torres was formally charged with manslaughter, aggravated kidnapping, and concealment of a corpse. His lawyer tried to negotiate a deal claiming mental disorder, but the prosecution refused, insisting on a full trial due to the premeditated nature of the crime. During trial preparation, additional investigations revealed that Torres had been a suspect in at least 3 other disappearance cases in different states between 1994 and 2005. While there wasn't sufficient evidence for additional charges, the pattern established Torres as a serial predator who specifically targeted vulnerable people with disabilities. Torres's trial began in September 2006, 9 months after the discovery of the secret compartment. Media coverage was intense, with the case being presented as an example of systematic failures in protecting people with disabilities. David Chen testified during the trial, describing the devastating impact Sarah's disappearance had on his family. "Torres didn't just take our daughter from us," he told the jury. "He robbed us of 15 years of proper grieving, 15 years of answers, 15 years of peace." Linda Chen chose not to testify personally but provided a written statement that was read in court. Sarah was a brilliant and determined young woman who deserved to live a full life. Torres not only ended her life, but also tortured our family with years of uncertainty and false hope. Torres's defense tried to argue diminished mental capacity, presenting evidence of his delusional disorder and history of psychological problems. However, the premeditated nature of the crime, evidenced by the construction of the secret compartment months before the kidnapping, undermined this strategy. On November 15, 2006, after just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury found Torres guilty on all charges. Judge Philip Morrison sentenced him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, citing the particularly heinous nature of the crime and the prolonged suffering inflicted on the victim's family. During the sentence reading, Torres made a final statement directed at the Chens. "I know apologies are inadequate. I know I destroyed lives. If I could trade places with Sarah, I would do so without hesitation." The Chen family offered no public forgiveness to Torres, but expressed relief at the case's closure. "Justice has been served," David said after sentencing. "Sarah can finally rest in peace." The Sarah Chen case resulted in significant changes to police protocols for investigating disappearances involving people with disabilities. The Lakewood Police Department implemented specialized training and more rigorous procedures for this type of case. Additionally, state legislation was modified to require more rigorous background checks for professionals providing in-home services to people with disabilities. The Sarah Chen law established higher standards of protection and supervision for home healthcare professionals. The discovery of the secret compartment also led to a re-evaluation of similar archived cases throughout the state. 3 cases previously considered runaways were reopened as possible crimes, resulting in 2 additional charges against other perpetrators. 17 years after the discovery of the truth about Sarah Chen, her story continues to impact families, legislators, and public safety professionals across the country. The case not only brought justice to a devastated family, but also exposed systematic vulnerabilities in protecting people with disabilities. In 2007, 1 year after Torres's trial, David and Linda Chen established the Sarah Chen Foundation for Missing Persons, a non-profit organization dedicated to improving resources and protocols for investigating disappearances involving people with disabilities. The foundation provides specialized training for police departments and offers support to families in similar situations. "Sarah can't come back," Linda said during the foundation's launch ceremony, "but we can use her story to protect other families from going through what we went through." The foundation has already helped solve 16 missing persons cases, including 5 that resulted in perpetrator arrests. The Sarah Chen Protocol, a set of guidelines developed by the foundation, has been adopted by more than 200 police departments in 30 states. Michael Torres remains incarcerated at Colorado State Penitentiary, serving life imprisonment. In 2015, he attempted to appeal his sentence claiming inadequate legal representation, but the appeal was denied. Torres has demonstrated exemplary behavior in prison and participates in psychological counseling programs. During a rare interview granted in 2020, Torres expressed continued remorse. "Not a day goes by without me thinking about Sarah and the Chen family. I fully accept my responsibility and hope my punishment serves as a warning to others who might have similar thoughts." The Sarah Chen case also resulted in significant legislative changes. The Sarah Chen Protection Act, passed by Congress in 2008, established national standards for background checks of professionals working with vulnerable people. The law also created a national database to track disappearance cases involving people with disabilities. David Chen, now 75, remains active in the foundation while enjoying a quiet retirement. "The work gives us purpose," he said in a recent interview. "Every family we help, every case we solve, honors Sarah's memory." Linda Chen, in turn, wrote a book about her experience titled "Searching for Sarah, A Mother Seeks Justice," The book became a national bestseller and was adapted into an award-winning documentary. Sarah's room in the Chen house was transformed into an office for the foundation, where Linda works daily coordinating search efforts for other families. Now, this space serves a positive purpose, she explained. Sarah would be proud to know her room is helping other people. The case's impact extends beyond the immediate family. Jessica Martinez, Sarah's best friend, became a social worker specializing in working with teenagers with disabilities. Sarah taught me about courage and determination, Jessica said. I try to honor that lesson in my work every day. In 2021, on the 30th anniversary of Sarah's disappearance, the city of Lakewood inaugurated the Sarah Chen Memorial Park, a fully accessible public space dedicated to her memory. The park serves as a symbol of the community's determination to protect its most vulnerable members. The inauguration ceremony attracted hundreds of people, including families helped by the Sarah Chen Foundation, law enforcement officers who worked on the case, and disability rights activists from across the country. Sarah lived only 14 years, said Lakewood's mayor during the ceremony, but her legacy will continue protecting people for generations. Her courage inspired an entire community to do better. The Sarah Chen case remains a landmark in criminal investigation and protection of vulnerable people. Universities across the country study the case in criminology and criminal justice courses, using it as an example of how proper investigations and family perseverance can eventually lead to justice. In a final reflection on her daughter's legacy, Linda Chen said, "Sarah always wanted to be a writer, always wanted her voice to be heard. In a way she could never have imagined, her story is being told across the country, protecting other people and bringing justice. Perhaps this is the most important story she ever told." Subscribe to our channel to explore more archived and disturbing cases. Thank you for following Sarah Chen's story. See you in the next video. The morning sun filters through the windows of what was once Sarah Chen's bedroom, now transformed into the headquarters of a foundation that bears her name. Linda Chen, silver-haired and 73, sits at the desk where her daughter once wrote stories and dreamed of becoming an author. The irony is not lost on her. Sarah did become a writer, though not in the way anyone could have imagined. Her story, written in pain and persistence in legal documents and legislative halls, has reached more people than any novel ever could. 20 years have passed since Michael Torres confessed to the crime that shattered a family and changed a community forever. 20 years since the secret compartment was opened and the Chen family's decade and a half of agonizing uncertainty finally ended. The house on Maple Street has been renovated, modernized, made accessible in ways Sarah never experienced. But the most important changes aren't visible in the upgraded bathrooms or the residential elevator. They're written in the laws that now protect people like Sarah, in the protocols that ensure their disappearances are never dismissed or diminished. Linda's fingers trace the edge of a photograph on her desk. Sarah at 13, grinning widely as she poses with her latest Edgar Allan Poe collection. The girl who loved dark, mysterious stories became the center of one herself. But unlike Poe's tales, this one didn't end in despair. It transformed into something unprecedented. Hope made tangible, justice served not just for one family, but for countless others. She would have been 47 this year, Linda whispers to the empty room, a ritual she's maintained every morning for 2 decades. Probably married, maybe with children of her own. Maybe still writing those stories she loved so much. The grief is still there, sharp as ever on some days, but it's been joined by something else. Pride. Pride in what Sarah's legacy has accomplished, in how her story has become a beacon for families lost in their own darkness. The Sarah Chen Foundation occupies 3 floors of a building downtown now, employing 47 people full-time. They've helped solve 127 missing persons cases involving people with disabilities, trained over 3,000 law enforcement officers, and lobbied successfully for legislative changes in 38 states. The Foundation's motto, engraved in bronze in the lobby, reads, "Every voice matters, every life has value." It's taken from something Sarah wrote in her diary years before she disappeared. "I may move differently, but my voice matters just as much." David Chen, now 78, still comes to the Foundation office every Tuesday, though his official retirement was 5 years ago. He reviews cases, mentors young investigators, and sometimes simply sits in the lobby reading newspapers, a living reminder to staff and visitors that behind every missing person file is a family whose world has stopped turning. His hair is white now, his gait slower, but his eyes still hold the fierce determination that kept him searching for his daughter long after others had given up. The couple's marriage, nearly destroyed by grief in those early years, has become something deeper than either thought possible. They learned to honor Sarah not through the preservation of pain, but through the transformation of tragedy into purpose. Their love story is inseparable from their daughters. They found each other again by finding ways to help others find their missing children. In Colorado State Penitentiary, Michael Torres enters his 18th year of incarceration. Now 66, he has become what prison psychologists describe as a model inmate, quiet, remorseful, participating in every available counseling program. He writes letters regularly to victim advocacy groups, sharing insights about his psychological state that have been used to train law enforcement in identifying potential predators. These letters are never sent to the Chen family. Torres understands that some forgiveness cannot and should not be sought. Dr. Catherine Walsh, the FBI profiler who worked on the case, has used Torres's psychological profile to identify 17 other potential predators across the country. 3 of them were arrested before they could harm anyone. The Sarah Chen case changed how we approach crimes against people with disabilities, she says. It showed us that predators specifically target vulnerability and that we need to be more proactive in our protection strategies. The house's basement, once a place of horror, has been converted into a resource center where families of missing persons can meet, share experiences, and access support services. The exact location where the secret compartment was discovered is now marked by a small memorial plaque that reads, "In memory of Sarah Chen and all those who vanish into silence, may their voices never be forgotten." Fresh flowers appear there every week, placed by volunteers whose own lives have been touched by loss. Jessica Martinez, Sarah's childhood friend, is now Dr. Jessica Martinez, Director of Disability Services at Denver General Hospital. Her office walls are covered with photos of patients she's helped, advocacy awards she's received, and in the center, a picture of her and Sarah from their 8th grade science fair. "Sarah taught me that having a disability doesn't make you less than anyone else," she often tells her patients. "It just makes you different, and different can be beautiful." The Sarah Chen Memorial Park, established in 2021, has become more than just a symbol. It's a gathering place where the disability community finds acceptance and celebration. The park's adaptive playground equipment serves over 200 children with various disabilities each week. Its walking trails, designed for wheelchairs and other mobility devices, wind past gardens where plaques share the stories of missing persons who have been found because of work inspired by Sarah's case. At the park's entrance stands a bronze statue, not of Sarah herself but of an empty wheelchair facing toward the sunrise, its meaning clear to all who see it. The inscription reads, "For all the journeys never taken, all the dreams never realized, and all the voices that refuse to be silenced." Linda often visits the park in the early mornings, before the rush of children and families arrives. She sits on the bench nearest the statue and reads aloud from the letters the foundation receives. Letters from parents whose children were found, from survivors who escaped their captors, from law enforcement officers whose training helped them solve cases that might otherwise have remained cold. "Dear Mrs. Chen," one recent letter began, "you don't know me, but your daughter saved my son. When Tommy disappeared from his group home in Michigan, the local police used the Sarah Chen protocol. They found him in less than 48 hours, hidden in a facility worker's apartment. Tommy is autistic and couldn't tell us what was happening, but the protocol trained officers to look for exactly the kind of predator who took him. Sarah's story brought my son home." These letters arrive daily now from across the country and around the world. The Sarah Chen case has been studied internationally, leading to improved protection protocols in 7 countries. Sarah's story has been translated into dozens of languages, adapted into documentaries, and referenced in countless academic papers on victimology and criminal justice. The Chen family has never sought to profit from their daughter's story. Book royalties, speaking fees, and documentary rights all flow directly to the foundation. "We didn't choose this path," David explains to those who ask. "Sarah's death chose it for us, but we can choose what we do with it." The annual Walk for Sarah's Memory has grown from a small community gathering to a national event, with simultaneous walks held in over 100 cities. This year's walk, scheduled for October 15th, the 34th anniversary of Sarah's disappearance, expects over 50,000 participants nationwide. The funds raised support everything from search and rescue equipment to advanced training for law enforcement, to college scholarships for young people with disabilities pursuing careers in criminal justice. Among this year's scholarship recipients is Maria Santos, a 19-year-old with spina bifida who wants to become an FBI agent. Sarah Chen showed me that people with disabilities can make a difference in the world, Maria wrote in her application essay. She couldn't become the writer she dreamed of being, but her story is being written every day by people like me who refuse to be seen as victims. In the Foundation's archive room, thousands of case files tell stories of hope emerging from despair. There's the file of 8-year-old Marcus Johnson, who was found safe after disappearing from a special education classroom. His teacher had learned the Sarah Chen protocol and recognized warning signs that might otherwise have been dismissed. There's the thick folder documenting the successful prosecution of a care facility operator who was abusing residents with developmental disabilities. The case broke open when an investigator applied techniques developed from studying Torres's psychological profile. Each solved case adds another layer to Sarah's legacy, another voice to the chorus of those who refuse to let the vulnerable disappear into silence. The original case files from 1991 are preserved in a climate-controlled vault at the Foundation. Linda has read through them countless times, not out of masochism, but searching for lessons that might help other families. She's identified 17 specific points where the original investigation could have been more thorough, and these findings have been incorporated into law enforcement training programs across the country. Sarah's case was failed by the system, Linda often tells police academies when she speaks to new recruits, not because the officers were bad people, but because the system wasn't designed to protect people like my daughter. We've changed that system, but vigilance is eternal. Every missing person deserves the same urgency, the same resources, the same refusal to give up. On quiet evenings, David and Linda still visit Sarah's grave in Lakewood Cemetery. The headstone, simple granite engraved with Sarah Chen, beloved daughter, eternal advocate, is surrounded by flowers, letters, and small gifts left by people whose lives have been touched by her story. They've never met most of these visitors, but their presence is a reminder that Sarah's impact extends far beyond her family. Sometimes they find drawings left by children, pictures of wheelchairs with wings, rainbows with words of hope, stick figures holding hands. These anonymous tributes move Linda more than any formal recognition ever could. Children understand, she tells David. They see Sarah not as a tragedy, but as someone who made the world a little bit safer for kids like them. The Chen house itself has become an unofficial pilgrimage site for families of missing persons. Linda estimates that 3 to 4 families per month visit, seeking comfort, advice, or simply the presence of people who understand their journey. The guest bedroom is always ready, the kitchen table always set for unexpected visitors who need a place to rest while searching for their loved ones. Some stay for an hour, some for a week, Linda explains. We never turn anyone away. Sarah's room is gone, but her spirit of hospitality lives on. Technology has advanced dramatically since 1991, and the Foundation has embraced every innovation that might help find missing persons. They've funded research into improved DNA analysis techniques, supported the development of facial recognition software adapted for people with disabilities, and pioneered the use of social media in search efforts. Sarah, who loved reading about scientific discoveries, would be fascinated by how science is now helping to find people like her. The Foundation's newest initiative involves training service animals to assist in search and rescue operations specifically designed for finding people with disabilities. The program, called Sarah's Shepherds, has already contributed to finding 12 missing persons who might otherwise have remained lost. As Linda sits in what was once her daughter's room, sorting through the morning's mail, she comes across a letter that stops her breathing for a moment. The return address is from Colorado State Penitentiary, not from Torres. He stopped writing years ago when it became clear his letters only reopened wounds. This letter is from someone else, a newer inmate who has heard Sarah's story. Mrs. Chen, the letter begins, I'm in here for hurting someone, and I heard about your daughter from another inmate. I just wanted you to know that her story made me understand what I did wrong. I'm getting help now. And when I get out, I want to work with your foundation if you'll let someone like me help. Maybe I can prevent someone else from doing what I did. Linda sets the letter aside to share with David later. Even here, even in this place of punishment and regret, Sarah's story continues to change hearts and minds. The girl who wanted to write stories that mattered has accomplished exactly that. Her story has become one of the most important narratives of protection, justice, and hope in modern criminal justice. Outside the window, autumn leaves drift past. October in Colorado, 34 years after everything changed. In a few hours, Linda will drive to the foundation office, where she'll spend the day coordinating search efforts for 3 newly missing persons with disabilities. David will review cold cases, looking for patterns that might yield to new investigative techniques. Somewhere in the country, a police officer trained in the Sarah Chen protocol will notice something that others might miss, leading to a rescue that saves a life. The cycle continues, powered by love transformed into action, grief channeled into purpose, loss converted into protection for others. Sarah Chen disappeared on October 15, 1991. But her voice, demanding justice, insisting on dignity, proclaiming the worth of every vulnerable life, grows stronger every year. The girl who loved dark stories ultimately wrote the brightest story of all. Proof that even the deepest tragedy can become a force for hope, that love truly is stronger than death, and that some voices once raised can never be silenced. In the end, Sarah got her wish. She became a writer whose work changes lives every single day. The stories that matter most are the ones that save lives. Sarah's story will be saving lives long after all of us are gone. Linda Chen, October 15, 2025, 34th Anniversary Memorial Service.